Folks, we're back. This is We Are Change Fresno on 1680 AM. I'm your host, Stuart Webb, along with my co-host, Sam Chaney. We just got done talking to Jill Love, and please visit her website, jillloverevolution.com. Help her fund her Indiegogo campaign to create a book of political art to raise awareness to important things going on. And so we appreciate her work. We appreciate her having on. Our next guest is Corey Gunnels. She is out of Chino Hills, Arizona?
Actually, it's Marie. Marie is on the line right now.
Is it Marie?
And she's got Corey with her.
Okay,
yes.
Marie and Corey.
Yep.
And they're out of
Chino Valley, Arizona.
Chino Valley, Arizona.
Chino!
Sam, do you want to bring them in and kind of go over what's going on down there and kind of why we're having them on?
Well, they're great geoengineering activists that I see all over Facebook, all over the internet, posting about this geoengineering crime against humanity that's going on. How are you women doing tonight?
Great. How are you? We're doing good, thank you.
We're doing good. Thanks for coming on the show.
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks for having us.
But we brought you on specifically tonight to talk about this recent event that happened there in Arizona where you live, where you saw military C-130s dropping this I don't even know. Can you describe what they're dropping out of the planes there on you?
Sure. On November 5th, this is Corey, and I live in Prescott, which is about 8 miles southwest of Chino Valley, where Marie is from. And anyway, I was outside on the 5th of November, and close to 4 o'clock in the afternoon. It was about 3:55, something like that. And I heard a very loud plane, unusual, looked up and saw a large C-130 directly followed by 2 other planes. Very unusual configuration because those 2 planes were following it so closely in a straight line. So I had my cell phone in my hand, and I quickly changed it to camera and just hoped that I could get a shot, a photo, which I was able to do. So I called Marie, and she lives in the direction these planes were flying, and I asked her if she would run outside to see if she could see them, because it was just so unusual, and she did. And speaking to her, she then all of a sudden, just exclaimed, oh my gosh, and I said, what? And she said, don't you see it? And I said, see what? And she said, the sky just filled. She said, it looks like these long 50-foot raindrops just coming down. And so within a couple minutes, because of the prevailing wind coming west toward me, my sky also filled. And what we saw is just a shimmering, long, for me, what I saw was about 10 to 20 feet long, shimmering webs, similar to a spider web, much longer. The sun was glinting off of them, and this persisted heavily for an hour's time.
Very bizarre, very bizarre. And so you took this to your local CBS 5-station KPHO there, and they did a report about it. You want to explain to our audience a little bit about the report that they did?
The report actually came later. The very first thing we did, we both called the EPA.
The Environmental Protection Agency, who's supposed to be looking out for the environment, right?
You would think so.
Well, that's what they portray themselves as.
Oh, correct. Well, that's easy. The initial contact, the woman I spoke to, she was very nice. And she said, listen, if this is happening in real time, you're in Arizona. We happen to be in EPA Region 9, which is headquartered in San Francisco. She said, I want you to call somebody closer. And she said, I want you to call Arizona Department of Environmental Quality. And she gave me the name of a woman and her inside line, as well as...
Now, is that a state agency or a federal agency?
It's a state agency.
Okay.
Yeah, Arizona Department of Environmental Quality. And anyway, I didn't reach anybody directly, so I filed an online report. And on that report, it says who your referring agency is, and so I marked the EPA. And I'll let Marie Snow take it from there. She made some calls as well. Hi, it's Marie.
Hi.
Hi. How's it going?
Oh, good. I contacted the EPA also and the ADEQ. The ADEQ states that because it's an airplane emission, it is not their problem.
Oh, of course.
Okay, this was not an airplane emission. We saw the webs coming from the direction of the aircraft. We didn't see it coming from the aircraft, which it was an immediate happening. As soon as the craft flew over my head is when these fibers started falling.
Like they're dumping it out of the back of the C-130.
No, actually, when Corey called me, I saw the C-130 with the two escorts, and one of the escorts did a U-turn and headed north toward my home. And Corey and I were still on the phone, and as it began to pass overhead is when these fibers started falling. And like I've said before, anything that falls from the direction of an aircraft can't be too healthy. So I became really alarmed, and I went inside and put gloves on and decided to take some samples.
Yeah, that's scary. And so now we're getting to the part of the story where you reported to the CBS Channel 5 there, or?
Yes, I contacted about 5 different networks, and CBS got back to us first. And they came up and did an interview, and they failed to submit many, many facts that I basically what happened is
they spun the interview.
Yeah, you know what? One thing that happened is they wouldn't take a sample while Marie was present. They took a sample supposedly after the interview was over. Yeah. They weren't really.
They didn't want any witnesses.
Of course.
Well, it kind of feels that way. And they. The other thing is the assignment editor for CBS. It's Channel 5. This is out of Phoenix. I had a conversation with him, and it was about several things. But one of them is I asked him to please hold their story until they had all the facts present, because we sent in 2 independent, samples to a certified lab.
Yeah. And you wanted to get those results and give it to them, right?
Well, exactly. And we said we would share that as soon as they came in, but it takes about 10 days to get lab results back. And I didn't want to wait. They didn't want to wait. So the other thing that they didn't include in their report was that very week, this assignment editor admitted to me that 3 other independent witnesses in the Phoenix area reported seeing the same phenomenon. And what's important about that is that our area here is a mountain area. We're about 100 miles north of Phoenix, and our elevation is a mile high. Phoenix is a desert valley, and their elevation is about 1,100 feet. So very different topography, very different climate. And the conclusion that Channel 5 came to after taking their sample to Grand Canyon University, which is an interesting choice in itself because that's a small private Christian college in Phoenix. It's not like if they're taking it to the University of Arizona or UC Davis or, something like that. They put this material that they had under 40 times magnification and also submitted it to a test that uses infrared. And what that test does is it's a comparative test. So it looks for a chemical signature that it correlates with a database of known substances. And what their conclusion was that this material was flour, gluten, and bacitracin. So from that, they determined that, and I kid you not, it was cattle bandages.
Yeah, I read that and I thought, what? That doesn't make any sense at all when I read that.
Is CBS trying to intentionally discredit themselves? Because it looks like they are not doing very good at investigative reporting.
Not at all. And in fact, I said, because Sam, particularly, that stories related to geoengineering are often marginalized or dismissed.
Or spun as your crazy conspiracy theorist.
Absolutely. And so at the start of their report, they have the reporter standing there in front of a green screen, huge background of a cotton field.
That was blatant a bit.
So that's predictive programming right there,
Yeah.
And,
subliminal message, yeah.
Yeah, and Phoenix does have cotton fields, not too far. Prescott, Chino Valley, we're too cold. We don't grow cotton here. We do have cattle ranches here, a lot of historic cattle ranches. Phoenix doesn't because it's too hot. But I have never, ever seen, or could I find it credible, that the sky over an hour's period could fill with cattle bandages. And
that's a lot of cattle bandages.
It was on the telephone wires they were waving like flags, and they were so long. I took a white piece of paper and wound these fibers around and around and around, trying to collect this to have it tested, and it just never ended. I could have kept winding until probably yesterday.
Wow, that's scary stuff. So you guys got misreported on by CBS News 5 there, and so you had to take it upon yourself to do your own independent lab tests?
That's correct. Yes, which we did immediately. It's just that there's.
They didn't want to wait.
So we weren't. Excuse me. We were not relying on Channel 5 to do an investigation.
Smart.
We wanted to bring it to their awareness, but it wasn't like we ran to them like, please help us and please help us figure this out.
No.
In fact, I was very, very cautious in the beginning because I thought that they would marginalize it.
Which they did.
Yeah, absolutely.
Which they did. And so in some ways, because their story was so ridiculous, it's almost a gift because it's proof positive of what they do with this kind of, story. So
no, yeah.
The other thing is we did get our lab tests back. And I submitted a sample. We were very careful how we captured it. I sent it in, and I actually went to the veterinary office to get a sterile container to put it in and send it. And
you took all the precautions.
My lab test came back. I asked for an analysis for aluminum and barium. And for aluminum, this is measured in milligrams per kilogram because it's a solid. The results I got for aluminum was 1,020. And for barium, it was 34.1. And I'll let Marie tell you what hers was.
I tested for aluminum and strontium, and my aluminum level was 421, and my strontium was 70.8.
So those are heavy metals being dropped onto us, but then told by a mainstream local media outlet that that's something completely different, that they tested something completely different.
That's right.
During the interview, I decided not to even mention geoengineering because I wanted the lab results to speak for themselves. So we just did the investigation. We went and I showed them on a fence where some fibers were. They looked at it, they interviewed me, and I don't know what happened after that. But what they collected didn't look at all like what we saw that day and what we collected.
Right.
Yeah, well, the fruit of their labor, that CBS station, is sour. It doesn't taste good. So you'll obviously go to other media outlets and give them the real information with all the facts because they already butchered the story to make you look like it was no big deal that we're being sprayed. So now, did you find that? Were you guys already familiar with geoengineering a little bit, or is that why you were kind of actively, you knew that this was probably a big deal, that, hey, this stuff is dropping from these C-130s. We should probably report on this and figure out what's going on.
Exactly.
Well, there was some irony that this happened, that I witnessed the planes coming over and that I called Marie, because I could have easily been somewhere in the car. I could have been doing dishes. I could have been reading a book, or, taking the dog for a walk, or my husband's laughing. He walks the dog. Anyway, you know what I'm saying. It's the irony of catching this. We're both anti-Jew engineering activists and have been for years.
Wow. That is ironic.
Yeah. In fact, right after the interview, I was scheduled and did go to Redding, California for the 11/21/14 climate and, geoengineering.
Yeah.
A clear and present danger. I was the MC for that event, and I moderated the panel of experts. So we're familiar with it, and we knew that, this unusual flight going over and the sky filling, we knew the likelihood that, it was something related to geoengineering. We needed to test it. So, coincidence?
Yeah, it's really ironic. Just in general, the systems that the system pushes actually is a weapon against them. You were actually able to do your own report, send it to media outlets, and get in contact with people like us, like Intel Hub, and you were able to push the story because the mainstream media is dying completely because they don't. The fruit of their labor is sour. Period.
They're suicidal. They won't even report on their own self being poisoned. It's so ridiculous.
Yeah, they're that. They're that compartmentalized. I mean, why is geoengineering Why do you think the system is so scared of people reporting on this, and they're so set on making everyone that talks about it a conspiracy theorist? Is it because if people really knew what was going on, if we actually accepted it, there'd probably be massive protests, don't you think?
Or very scared people. Some people prefer not to.
Cowards.
They want to keep their head in the sand and be safe.
Yeah, they're a bunch of cowards. And I just pulled up an article. It's not like this is anything new. The Army sprayed St. Louis with toxic aerosol during the 1950s, and that's out of the AP. That's a couple years old article. But I mean, we know that there's a long history of the U.S. government testing chemical weapons on its own people, and so for them to deny it and act like nothing ever happens like that is just utterly ridiculous.
It is. Well, we also know from rain, soil, snow tests, blood tests, that those three, especially those three, aluminum, barium, and strontium, are related to geoengineering. They do match up with about 150 patents. We do know that this is weather modification with the stratospheric aerosols. And, for some of your listeners, yes, a layman's term for that would be chemtrails.
But we're not supposed to use that term.
Yeah.
We try to use the science term because when people Google it, if you use chemtrails, it does go straight to the conspiracy and the debunker sites. And you have to do some digging to get to the actual geoengineering or government documents or things like that are legitimate and credible.
Well, one of the programs is called Solar Radiation Management, right? And that's what these scientists put out there is imagine what it would be like when they're doing it, but they're like, imagine what it would be like if we could reflect the sun back to combat global warming when they're doing it. But I mean, this is the lie and this game that these geoengineering scientists like to play.
It's a big lie, and in fact, David Keith, who's one of the most well-known geoengineers from Harvard, there was an article in the mainstream media. Well, there have been many, but there was one last week where he admitted in it. He admitted that, of course, he talks about this as theory or that it's only been in computer modeling and that it isn't in reality yet, which we know is a lie. They're trying to condition the public and sell it as something that's going to be needed as a fix, when actually they've been using it. It's been causal. It's been causing warming. It's been causing horrific weather. It's decimated the ozone layer. We have unprecedented levels of UV radiation now at ground level that's, harming vegetation, trees, people, stripping the bark off trees. You know,
yeah,
so
we live in
it's
California.
harmful.
Yeah, we live in California, and the drought has just been devastating here for the breadbasket of the world here, you know.
Absolutely.
And we get
there
sprayed
was
all the time.
There was a geoengineer insider interviewed by, actually, it's on geoengineeringwatch.org. You can look that up. There's part 1 and part 2. It's called An Insider Speaks. And he says California is a sacrifice zone.
Climate sacrifice zone, right?
Yeah. And he also said if people knew what they were really doing, they would take them out in the street and hang them.
That's what they deserve. Trial first, but then some severe action against them because they think they're God going against creation. And hey, geoengineering scientists, government, you are not God.
That's correct. You know, I mean, they are playing God with the weather. And this is not just the United States, it's globally. You know, it's a global issue. It is our number one concern. If we don't address this, if we don't expose this or stop this, nothing else is going to matter. Your money isn't going to matter.
Yeah.
You won't have food. You won't have your health. You'll no longer have, you know, the ability to breathe. We know that, you know, the respiratory and, you know, the bioavailability of these nanoparticulate metals goes straight for the brain. The
aluminum, right? It's going to give everybody Alzheimer's and dementia.
Exactly. You know, and MIT published a study. Within the next 10 years, they're saying that 1 out of 2 kids will have autism.
Yeah, well, it's already 1 out of 56. You're seeing numbers like that in boys.
Exactly,
it's unbelievable. Yeah. There's something wrong, and we see it in the air. We see it, but we're called conspiracy theorists just for looking and recording the skies being sprayed. It's not commercial. They're all tic-tac-toed. Some days there's no spraying going on, but then other days you know that you're being covered, and it's an instinct. We know, people that aren't in tune, people that care about watching mainstream television and their shows.
Navel gazers.
Yeah, I mean, they obviously aren't. They don't really care or not in tune. But people that are semi-awake, they understand how important this issue is. If we can't grow food, if we can't breathe,
they're blocking out the sun.
I mean, we can't. We're not gonna. It's not gonna matter. Nothing's gonna matter if they're literally spraying us like a bug.
Yep, that's right. And so we need to get really serious. I tell people, they need to speak the truth. They need to bridge to others that don't know. You need to do it in a way that the person can hear you. We have human behavior is such that people don't want to be yelled at. They don't want to be called sheeple. They don't want to be, admit to them there was a time when you two didn't know. But don't cover the truth up. Tell them, yeah, this is very concerning. Yes, this is scary, but it has to be looked at. And encourage them to look at the sky and not look at it just for a minute. Look and see the transformation. When they see those trails, what happens, how they, morph out and cover a sky. So one thing that we did to collect evidence related to geoengineering fallout, we started a new Facebook group page today, and it's called Geoengineering-Fallout Evidence. And what we'd like people to do is to send us their photographs, their videos, their lab tests, anything that they have as evidence of this, so that we can amass, a large amount of data and really take this and push legally.
This would be blood tests, fiber tests, rainwater tests. We just urge everyone. It's so important.
Yeah.
I guess that's what we got to do, and then the power structure establishment probably still won't do anything. I don't know, because here in Fresno, like, we've taken it to our air pollution control board, the issue. They refuse to even acknowledge it.
Right.
They pass off jurisdiction. They say, we don't have jurisdiction here, and so they pass it off to the EPA, and then you call the EPA, and the EPA says that it's just contrails, nothing to worry about. It's ice crystals.
Exactly. However, because they're becoming so obvious in their dismissals and their boilerplate replies and so forth, we just got one yesterday our congressman here, Representative Gosar, sent an email of his communication with the EPA. The EPA, get this, they did their research. You know what it was? They went to the Channel 5, the Channel 5 report. And honest to God, and they said,
It's cotton.
Channel 5 looked into it and said it was cattle bandages.
Wow.
Yeah. Now, the EPA is supposed to be our group of protective, science-based, credible, ethical.
Well, they'll just cite each other's lies. They'll cite each other. The local mainstream media will cite the mega big mainstream media's lies, and then the mainstream media, they'll revert back to the local if you try to hit them up. And why would cattle bandages be falling out of the sky from C-130s? They can't explain that. They're banking off the
Why would they test
fact.
positive for aluminum, barium, and strontium as well?
Well, the only thing I can tell you is that this isn't finished. We aren't going to drop it. And that's why we also need more evidence. This is happening all over. There are other people reporting in, seeing the same, filming it, so forth. We need to get them to collect samples and test it. But I can tell you this. On the inside of the EPA, there are people that are concerned that have been in discussion with others, specifically in California. So we're in Region 9, even though we're in Arizona. Region 9's base is San Francisco. There are people within the EPA that are concerned that have told us, please don't give up.
Yeah, well, that's great news. The dam has to break soon. I mean, because we see heart disease, respiratory illness, autism, on down the list.
They can only fake it so long.
All this exploding off the charts, and so the dam has to break.
So, but here's the thing. There's a Senate committee called the Environmental Public Works, so EPW. And Senator Mendelson, I believe is his name, of California, he's the gatekeeper. He's the chair of that Senate subcommittee.
He has a special place in hell reserved for him, I'm sure.
Yeah, well, he's the one that's not being cooperative, and he's the one that initiates investigation and approves funding. So that's who we need to talk to.
That's who we need to get out of office, and somebody in there who actually serve the public's best interest.
That's right.
Yeah, we need. Yeah.
If we have enough tests from certified labs.
Yeah.
I met with my physician yesterday. She's very concerned. She looked at the labs we have. She said that's very high, and she brought up neurobiology immediately. She said aluminum in the brain.
Yep.
This is not good.
Yeah. We got about 20 seconds, but could you throw out your Facebook group or any websites you want to plug? We got about 15 seconds.
Sure. It's called Geoengineering Fallout Evidence.
All right. Thank you so much, ladies. We will keep in touch with you, and please give us as it goes on. Give us more information on the story.
Keep up the good fight.
Thank you.
Thank you.
This show is sponsored by We Are Change Fresno. We Are Change Fresno. We Are Change Fresno.